musicians have all passed through these gates over the years. Word of warning about Trinity College before we tell you all about it. On the campus you have what's known as the Campbell, it's the bell tower. The bell has no specific time throughout the day that it rings. It rings 3 times a day. There's no specific time as to when it rings. If you are due to sit exams anytime soon, do not stand underneath the bell. And the reason being, if the bell goes off while you're standing underneath it, that means you were destined to fail all of your exams. There is a get-out clause, and we'll tell you about it now very shortly. Trinity College, it is Ireland's oldest university. It was founded in the year 1592 at the request of Queen Elizabeth I. It is part of the Trinity of Oxford, Cambridge and Dublin. Queen Elizabeth at the time was very concerned that her subjects had to travel to the likes of France, Italy, Spain to receive education in the Catholic universities, thus becoming corrupted in popery and becoming able citizens. So the college was founded on the grounds of the Priory of All Hallows. Now this was an Augustinian monastery. During the Reformation of King Henry VIII, the suppression of the religious orders, the lands were confiscated from the monks. When the college opened up first, there was about 60 to 80 students in attendance here, and they were all male, as females were not allowed to attend Trinity College until 1904. This was partly due to a gentleman by the name of George Salmon. He was the provost of the college for a period of time, and he swore, over my dead body, will women ever be allowed to attend this college. Well, George only went and died in 1903. No sooner was he popped his clogs and was dead and buried, invitations were sent out to various female academics to attend the college. Today there are over 16,000 students in attendance here. It is a 50-50 split between male and female, with over 120 countries represented by these students. 30% of the staff here at Trinity College are also from the 4 corners of the world. And this adds to the diversity of the college itself, and it takes up around 47 acres here in the city centre. Now inside the college today you'll find the long room or the old library, with one last reference to Harry Potter, if you are familiar with the movies. The Hogwarts library in these movies is in fact the long room of Trinity College, with its beautiful barrel vaulted ceiling. This is a copyright library, so it receives a copy of every single book published here in Ireland and England every year. As a result of that, they have to find over 1.5 miles of shelving every year for the books. They are not all housed here in Dublin, or in Trinity College, should I say. They are housed in a warehouse in the north of the city in an area called Santry. Students can request books to be removed from the warehouse twice daily, Monday to Friday. Now, in recent times, however, due to the tragedy, we call it a tragedy, of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, in France, many of the ancient books, 200,000 or so books, have been removed from the library and they've been put into storage. The reason being is that they're now adding fire suppression technology into the library itself. As it is a listed building, it has to be done in a specific way. The only book remaining in the long room of Trinity College today is in fact one of Ireland's most valued possessions. That is the early 9th century illuminated copy of the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, and is called the Book of Kells. Work began on this book in the monastery of Iona, which is off the coast of Scotland. But after Viking raids, the monks returned here to Ireland and they completed the book in Kells in County Meath. It is written in Latin. It is very beautifully decorated and it's made of over 150 velvet or calf skins. It contains a great many secrets, many of which have already been uncovered, but the book is always under investigation and many other secrets are still to be found. Now, in the year 1649, the Book of Kells disappeared. It vanished. Very few people knew where it vanished to. The reason for this was, it was the same year that Oliver Cromwell invaded Ireland. Mr. Cromwell then set about destroying many of the monasteries and the churches here in the country, and also the works which are housed in them. So a group of monks took it upon themselves in County Meath, Kells, County Meath. They took the book, which is already 800 years old at this stage, and they put it into hiding. It remained in hiding until the year 1660. After the restoration of the monarchy in England, it resurfaced, and then in the year 1661, it was brought here to Dublin, to Trinity College, placed in situ for the protection of the Crown. It remains here to this day. Now this here is the side entrance to Trinity College at these traffic lights. If you look to your right, this is Dawson Street. Now if you walk straight up Dawson Street, you can see Stephen's Green. Actually, if you look up there, that's where our stop number 7 is, just at the top of this street here. So Stop number 5, you walk straight down Nassau Street, continue on down, you'll pass the Millennium Wing entrance to the National Gallery, and stop number 5, just on the Meridian Square itself. Further on up then into Meridian Square is in fact all closed off for the security services for the protection of our Parliament buildings today. Now you can't take this little street here, this is called South Frederick Street. That'll bring you up onto Molesworth Street, and then you can either turn right onto Grafton Street or left onto Kildare Street. Stop number 4 here now, ladies and gentlemen. Next stop after this one will be stop number 8. Stop number 8 after this one. So this is stop number 4.
Right, good morning everybody. Welcome to Dublin. I think we've met our match on the commentary on the bus. Beautiful day here in Dublin City. We're on a bus tour and we thought it was too good not to share. Only on YouTube, as we've only got limited broadcasting equipment with us. I hope you can hear the commentary all right. It's quite fascinating. We've never been here before, and it is busy. So we've just actually got on the bus, and I know very little about Dublin, even though, yes, I know from Ireland, but I'm from Northern Ireland, and we're in Southern Ireland, and my information about, knowledge about Ireland, Dublin certainly, is very limited. Look at that beautiful brickwork on that building. So yeah, we're on the tour for, so hop off bus for the next hour or so. So sit back and learn and enjoy Dublin City. Tricia and Alice are there.
You're taking care of us.
In the sunshine. Can you believe this weather? What a couple of days we're having in Ireland. There's a view down the street. There's another hop on, hop off bus. It's uber busy. And such a cosmopolitan city. In our hotel, which was on Fleet Street, or in the Temple Bar area, probably the liveliest area in Dublin, I would say. Very few Irish tongues at all, so it's quite fascinating when you get to meet the locals or speak to the locals.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have just joined us here at stop number 4, you're very welcome on board. My name is John Ryan, on behalf of the Do Dublin team. Thank you very much for choosing to spend your time here with us in the city. Now, we'll have a little update for you. Next stop after stop number 4 today, it's going to be stop number 8. This diversion is in operation up until 11 p.m. this evening, so stops number 5, 6, 7 will not be in service today. That is to facilitate, obviously, the part. Now, I'm sure everyone who's been on the bus to stop number 1 is fed up listening to me saying this, but when we pass by it, you won't hear it again. Now, Nassau Street, the street that we're on here at the moment, this is named after King William of Orange. He was a member of the Royal Dutch household of Nassau and Orange, and he defeated the Catholic King James at the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. Now, this victory is celebrated every year on the 12th of July up in the north of Ireland by the Unionist and the Orange communities. It can be quite a contentious period of time surrounding it, before it and after it, and huge resources are employed by the security service to keep both the Unionists, the Orange Orders, the Nationalists, the Republicans all away from one another. It passed off relatively peacefully this year for some reason or other, but there was one Orange man shot. He was shot in the ear, and it wasn't even in Ireland, so we don't think it had to do with us. Now, that's Kildare Street there on your right hand side, and as you can see, the street is all closed off to facilitate the sitting of our Parliament. Now, you'll see all these little black limos all over the place as all of our politicians are being escorted here into the city. It was along this stretch of the street that the writer James Joyce first met a lady called Nora Barnacle, and she worked as a chambermaid at the former Finn's Hotel, which you see here on the left at the end of the railings. James Joyce wrote the book Ulysses, and this is considered by many academics to be one of the most important works ever written about the history and the city of Dublin. It is set on the 16th of June 1904, a particularly important date in Joyce's life, as this was his first official date with his beloved Nora. The book itself is a recreation of a day in the life of a typical Dubliner. His name is Mr. Theobald Bloom. So every year now on the 16th of June we celebrate Bloom's Day in Dublin. People dress up in traditional costume and they take saunters across the city to recite passages from the book and visit locations which are mentioned in it. Now, Nora and Joyce left Dublin in 1904 to spend the rest of their lives living in Tricia, Zurich and Paris. And before they headed off on their travels, Joyce's father called him to one side and said to him, "James, with a name like Barnacle, she'll cling to you for life." And she did cling to him for life. They were together right up until 1941. Having escaped Paris in 1940 after the invasion of Nazi Germany, they made their way towards Trieste, but sadly, Joyce passed away. Another one of our great writers is Oscar Wilde. Oscar was born in this house here on the left-hand side, house number 21. He was born on the 16th of October, 1854. He was baptised Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wilde, and he studied at Trinity College up until 1874. He then left Trinity. He went to study in Oxford in England, and it was here that his wit, his style, his character, his charm quickly got him noticed. He met and he fell in love with a lady called Constance Lloyd George. They got married and had 2 children. However, in Oscar's later years, he also met and he fell in love with a gentleman. His name was Alfred Douglas, known as Boise. He was the son of John Douglas, who was the Marquis of Queensberry. Now, if you are familiar with the sport of boxing, it is governed by the Queensberry rules. It was John Douglas who wrote these rules and also lent his title to it. John and Oscar didn't get on very well with one another. Eventually, Oscar sued him for libel, but he lost the case. He was then arrested and charged with inappropriate activity with gentlemen. Found guilty of the crime, he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for hard labour. There. That's it, thank you. Right there. He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for hard labour, and on his release from prison, he spent the rest of his life living in exile. So, some of Oscar's greatest quotes: "Women are to be loved, but not understood. I always pass on with advice. The best thing to do with it, because it's of no use to oneself. You should always be yourself as everybody else is taken. The only difference between a saint and a sinner is that all saints will have a past, but all sinners will have a future." My favourite quote from Oscar Wilde: "Marriage is grand, but divorce is 10 grand. And Oscar's final attributed quote on his deathbed: "My wallpaper and I are in the duel to the death. One of us must go." This here is Pearse Street, named after Padraig and William Pearse, 2 leaders of the 1960s rise. However, in the 18th and 19th century, it was called the Great Brunswick Street. It was one of the most fashionable streets to be seen on here in the city. Many of the wealthy businessmen, the aristocracy, the people of importance would be seen strolling up and down this street, and they'd be showing off all of the latest brands and their latest fashions. However, in 1936, it was renamed Pearse Street in honour of Padraig and William Pearse. They lived here on this street, house number 27, which is coming up now shortly on your right-hand side. Their father, James Henry Pearse, was a well-known sculptor in the city. Many of his works can be seen on many of the churches across the city, but particularly the Church of St. Augustine and St. John, located on Thomas Street. However, on the second floor of this house, between the windows, you'll see a carving of Padraig and William Pearse, done by their father to commemorate their life and also their execution after the rising. It's a very sad tale because William, although he was in the General Post Office, he had nothing really to do with the organisation of the rising. He was simply executed because he was Padraig's brother. This stop here now, ladies and gentlemen, is stop number 9. This is also stop H for your Docklands tour.
Right, so far so good. Hope you're enjoying the tour. Welcome, Farmer Pete, Tricia's Toys, Farmer Alice on a open top bus on a beautiful day. Look at the sky here in Dublin City. Hope you can hear the commentary all right. It's quite fascinating and all new. This is all new. We don't know what to expect. Never been here before. Every day's a school day at Dulscone. Dulscone in Dublin. This is a hop-on, hop-off bus, so we can stop at some stage for coffee if and when we need to. And we've been thoroughly enjoying the Irish television that's in the hotel room while we were here. Great debate last night on the, I think they call it the Late Show at 10 o'clock, which is a kind of current affairs programme. And they had 4 of the local politicians in. And as you've seen, the local parliament is set to reconvene today after the summer break. And the big debate last night was that they have installed a bicycle shelter outside I take it's the Parliament buildings. It's very hard to follow. At the cost, a bicycle shelter for push bikes for the politicians that choose to cycle to work.
Well, they're going to leave stop number 9 here. The traffic should be easing off fairly handy as we drive
for the cost of $336,000. There was a big debate.
Now, 1922
was a busy year. I better be quiet.
Ireland, historically speaking. We had the first publication of Ulysses. We also had the outbreak of the Irish Civil War. We had the assassination of Michael Collins in Blaine of Law in County Cork during the Civil War, and then obviously the foundation of An Garda Síochána. An Garda Síochána are the Irish Police Service, and it stands for the Guardians of Peace. Founded in 1922, today we have around 14,000 members, and they are predominantly unarmed police service. The busiest police station here in the city is here on your right hand side. This is Pearse Street Garda Station. Built in 1914 for the Dublin Metropolitan Police Service and replaced the old city barracks. Now, the Dublin Metropolitan Police Service was a British police service, and it was a very hated and a mistrusted police service here in the city. Outside the city then we had the Irish Constabulary. They were given the Royal Charter by Queen Victoria in 1848 for putting down the rebellion of that year. There are a couple of interesting little features about this Pearse Street Garda Station, and the first one being its architectural design is Scottish in origin, so it's known as a baronial style architecture. Now, I've had cause to be in Glasgow, I've had cause to be in Edinburgh and Paisley and Stirling, and there is some buildings dotted around these major cities in Scotland very similar to this one.
It's very
Edinburgh-esque.
Edinburgh-esque.
The lantern that you see just here above the main entrance with the Garda's emblem on it. But beneath that is the main entrance to Pearse Street Garda Station, and if you look at the archways, you can see traditional British bobbies. If you were a constable during the time of the DMP, this is how you gained access to the building. It was also how you exited the building. Further on up, there's another entrance, and if you were an officer, a detective, or a higher ranking official, this was the entrance that you used. And you can tell the difference between the caps that the Keystone cops are wearing. Now, one of the custodians of the history of An Garda Síochána, the Dublin Metropolitan Police, and the Royal Irish Constabulary, is a serving officer, and he does tours of the Garda Station itself. Now, they're done on request, and they only do 4 a week, depending on the operational requirements. But if you really want to see the inside of Pearse Street Garda Station, there's an easier way. And how is that? Well, if you were in Tampa Bar later on today, and you're getting carried away with all the music and the alcohol and all the festivities and the crack, as we like to say.
Yeah, that's where we
crack
stayed.
in Ireland is spelled C-R-A-I-C, and it means, it's an old Irish word, and it means a party or fun. So if you get carried away with all the crack, and you're up on the table, giving it socks, thinking you might go flatly or something, Pearse Street Garda Station have jurisdiction over Tampa Bar, and it's in there that you might get yourself some free bed and breakfast.
So that's what the police are known as, the Garda, not police.
College Green.
The Garda.
In medieval times, College Green was known as the Hoggin Green. And this is where you would have had all sorts of entertainment, from theatrical performances, jousting competitions, archery, swordplay, and even public executions, which were considered to be entertainment at the time. The main gallows here in Dublin was up at Stephen's Green, on Lasers Hill, or on the Baggett Gallows, or Baggett Street Gallows. And when you were hung by the neck until dead, your body was stripped, thrown onto a cart, brought down back here into the city, down to Misery Hill, that you'll see down on your Dockland store. If you do that later on, you'll see the Misery Hill. Back to the College Green. Today it's just called the College Green, obviously, because of the proximity here to the college on your left-hand side. being Ireland's oldest university. Now, the book kells. Now, Trinity College is not all about the book kells. There is 47 acres of it to explore, and it's free to visit the grounds of Trinity College. And college has resumed here, so you'll have all of these students open around the place, all the other bits.
This is the college here.
It's quite entertaining. It's just on a beautiful day like today, get some coffee, go in and sit down on one of the many benches around the playing fields and watch all the activity going on here at Trinity College. It might be a good way to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. As you can hear, we have a lot of sirens going off today. We expect this to continue now throughout the day. Now as we drive on to College Green,
We're very close here. There's a commentator. He's driving the bus as well.
as you drive on to the College Green, directly in front of us we have the old Parliament building. Now this housed the Dublin Parliament from 1729 up until January 1801, when an act of union was dividing the Parliament from Dublin and Westminster in England. So the politicians here in Dublin effectively voted themselves out of existence, and they handed the governance of Ireland over to Westminster. This was all done through blackmail and bribes and threats, promises of land and title and money. Jonathan Swift, who was once the great Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, once wrote of this building: just a stone's throw from the college, the world away from the wit and the knowledge. Tell me what the pile contains, many a head that holds no brains. Now the building itself was purchased by the Commercial Bank, Bank of Ireland, in the year 1803. One of the conditions for the purchase of the building, all of the glass had to be removed from the windows and the doors. Now at the time of the building, of the construction of the building, there was a window tax here in Dublin. You had to pay for the light coming through the windows into your house, and this is where you get the expression from.
I think
daylight
something's
robbery.
sinking here.
Now they requested all the windows and doors to be removed, the ones that were in it. The windows, not the windows, or the glass, the windows and doors. Obviously they want to avoid tax. Now we reckon that that's what it might have been, but what we know for certain is this: if your money goes into the Bank of Ireland today, it will never see the light of day again. Currently running in the Bank of Ireland is the Seamus Heaney exhibition. He's a very famous poet and playwright here in Ireland, and a particular favourite of many a Democratic president over the last number of years who've used some of the quotes in their speeches. It's free to visit the Seamus Heaney exhibition. It's just here directly in front of us, in front of Thomas Moore. You can also visit the bank if you wish to do so. Take a walk around. But obviously with restrictions in certain areas for banking work. So you can go in and have a look and get a feel of the old building itself. Trinity College, the main entrance will be on your left-hand side. It's like two of its former students. You have Edmund Burke, the statesman and politician, and Oliver Goldsmith, the poor writer. Now he wasn't poor for very long because he went on to have considerable success with books like The Vicar of Wakefield and She Stoops to Conquer. So this stop is for Trinity College, the Bank of Ireland, Seamus Heaney. We've got the Irish Whiskey Museum, we've got Grafton Street, and you've got Nassau Street. And also, if you want to get your photograph taken with one of the most famous women to have ever walked the streets of Dublin, she wheeled her wheelbarrow through the streets, broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. And her name is Molly Malone, ladies and gentlemen. Failed to keep in Dublin in 1988. We celebrated our millennium year, designed by an artist named Jeannie Reinhardt. She's the most photographed monument in the city, with over 5 million photographs taken of her to date. But Molly Malone is also one of the most photographed monuments in the city.
Where is Molly? I've missed her.
Sorry, she's also the most touched monument in the city, should I say. And there's a certain part of her anatomy that everybody feels compelled to touch. And as a result of that, Molly Malone is known to Dubliners today as being the tart with the cart. Turn left at the traffic lights in front of us if you want to get your photograph taken with Molly Malone. Now,
Wonder what's on that wagon there. Just what you expect to see in Dublin. Right, what street we're coming on to now? So as you can see, that's what he's talking about. All the windows in this building here been removed due to that a light tax at one time in Ireland. Bank of Ireland customer parking in there. Magnificent building it is. A lot of buses, isn't there? Wow. There's a lot of buses. It is.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, happy days. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here at stop number 10. You're very welcome aboard. My name is John Ryan. This street that you're on here now at the moment, it's called Dame Street. It's named after a 12th century medieval church called the Church of St. Mary le Dame. This church stood once upon a time up on our Cork Hill. Standing on the Cork Hill today, we have our City Hall. It's at stop number 12, right beside Dublin Castle. However, your next stop on the tour today is stop number 11. Now, stop number 11 is for Temple Bar. Temple Bar gets its name from Sir William Temple. He owned the land here in the 17th century, and a bar, spelled B-A-R-R, is an old Irish word, and it means a walkway along the river. Sir William Temple also owned land in London, and as a result of that, Dublin and London share a number of street names. So you've got the likes of Fleet Street, Train Street, and Exchequer Street, named with a few. The bar today is known as our cultural quarter, and it stretches from the Bank of Ireland all the way up to Christchurch Cathedral. Dame Street here is down to the River Liberties. 28 acres of pubs and clubs, bars, restaurants, galleries, museums and exhibitions, street performers, entertainers, and all sorts of shops of interest where you can buy souvenirs of your trip here to Dublin. Nearly every single one of them is made in China, but you can buy them in Dublin and bring them home with you if that's what you want to do. Many of the little side streets all along the right-hand side of us here will take you into Temple Bar. Many of the pubs have a live Irish music on throughout the day, up until the early hours of the morning.
Now, this is where we were staying in around here.
A la carte, carvery, tab menus. And food normally served up until around 10 p.m. in many of the pubs. That all sounds absolutely wonderful, but there are a couple of pitfalls about Temple Bar. The kind of attraction that it is, no matter where you are in the world, it will attract a similar kind of person. These people are only too happy to help you lighten your load. So if you're visiting Temple Bar later on today, folks, please be mindful of your personal belongings. That's your coats, your bags, your watches, your phones, your wallets, your husbands, your wives, your children if you have any with you. And if they don't get you, there's a good chance that the barman probably will, because you will be expected to pay extortionate prices in Temple Bar for all of the services, be it drink, food, whatever else. That's why you never get Dubliners off Temple Bar unless we're working there. Stop number 11, folks, this is the Temple Bar. Now, folks, just a moment there, please, just a moment.
Jennifer, I don't think we need to go to Temple Bar. The hotel was satisfied our needs. That's all we need. We'll have to go back there, I think, collect the car later on. We've got a hire car in the car park there. We really need to get into one of these little Irish souvenir shops, and we'll do a farmer bin. Remember, we picked up some souvenirs from Edinburgh. We'll pick up some Irish souvenirs, and as John Ryan, our bus driver, has just told us, most of them made in China, but we will get a few souvenirs and pop them into some Dalsconi merch that's heading around the world. You'll have your own little piece of Ireland. It's a busy, busy city, isn't it? It's a beautiful day. I don't know what this building is here on our left, but it's quite majestic. Look at the architecture on that. So stop number 11 I think we're at. On our bus tour of Ireland. What's behind us?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave stop number 11. We're going to head up towards the medieval part of Dublin City. Next stop, number 12, will be for Dublin Castle, City Hall and the Chester Beatty Libraries. In the year 2022, the Chester Beatty Library was voted one of the most beautiful little museums in the world, and that was by the Lonely Planet. They weren't telling any lies. It's a museum, and it is quite beautiful. It's all things Eastern European and Oriental. It'll only take you about 40 minutes to have a look around this little museum, and it's 40 minutes well spent, and the reason being, it's spent for free. Free to visit the Chester Beatty Libraries, ladies and gentlemen. The current exhibition running at the moment is the 3rd century Egyptian Christian scrolls. It's on the grounds of Dublin Castle here on our left-hand side. City Hall is the building just here directly on your left. The Dublin Castle itself was commissioned by the bad King John of England back in the year 1210. It was completed by the Anglo-Normans in the year 1230 and used by the British authorities for nearly 700 years as the centre for the administration of justice and defence for the country's capital. Blown to smithereens by a fire in the Gunpowder House in 1664, redesigned in the Georgian style. If you look to your left, this is the main entrance to Dublin Castle with the Statue of Justice above the gate. When the Statue of Justice was first put in place,
Dublin
all
Castle.
sorts of riots and disturbances broke out here in the streets of Dublin. The reason being is that the residents of the city felt that justice had now finally turned her back on the city. This here, stop number 12, is for Dublin Castle, City Hall and the Chester Beatty Library. Just one moment please, just one moment. You're obviously looking at the wrong left. Turn right now. See you now.
When's it going to be a stop for
Something else?
coffee?
Now, do you just pop that under there for me? Thank you. Let's do it on that.
Right, if you just joined us, we're on an open top bus tour of Dublin, Ireland. Welcome to it. Hope the commentary's alright. I don't need to say too much because John Ryan, our bus driver and commentator, is doing all the work and doing a very good job of it. Hopefully you can get the atmosphere of Dublin. It's busy.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, your next stop on the tour will be stop number 13, unlucky for some. Certainly was unlucky for one particular character associated with Christchurch Cathedral. We'll get to him in a moment. So, stop number 13 for Christchurch, and to give it its correct title, this is the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity of Ireland. This is an Anglican Church of Ireland, but it began life in the year 1038. It was built by a Northern king called Sitrick Silverberg. It was a small wooden structure which was dedicated to Christianity. When the Anglo-Normans arrived here in the 12th century, they replaced the small wooden structure with a stone cathedral that you see in front of me here today, and it was built for the then Archbishop of Dublin, Lawrence O'Toole, in the year 1172. After the Reformation of King Henry VIII and the suppression of the religious orders, this church was confiscated from the Catholic faith and was given to the Anglican faith. However, as the centuries rolled on and the years ticked by, the Anglican faith did not have the financial means or the resources to maintain this cathedral, so it began to fall into wreck and ruin, so much so that the roof of the cathedral collapsed in on itself. However, in the 1850s, thanks to the generosity of a Dublin whisky distiller, his name was Mr. Henry Lowe, he donated a considerable sum of money for the restoration of this cathedral. He also had an adjacent synod hall, and he connected the hall to the cathedral by a neo-Gothic bridge, which is said to be inspired by the bridge size of Venice. Today it is called St. Michael's Arch. Beside the synod hall, you will find the Dublinia exhibition. Dublinia is a Latin word. It's the name that the Romans gave to this area. Whilst the Romans never actually invaded Ireland, they did establish trade links with many of the tribes and groups that were active in the area at the time. When the Vikings arrived here in the 9th century, the name that they gave to this area was Dublin.
Wow.
Now, both
Look at
Dublin
that.
and Dublinia
Look at
are
that.
of the names Dublin, which is the Irish word meaning the Black Pool, and it's where the name Dublin is derived from today. Inside the cathedral then, you have the tomb of Strongbow. Strongbow was the leader of the Anglo-Normans. His name was Richard de Clare. A particularly nasty man by all accounts, as he murdered his own son for showing cowardice in battle. He done this by firstly chopping his head off, but then, not satisfied that his son was dead enough, he then chopped him in half and fed the lower half of the body to the dogs. He then gave permission for a crypt to be built to hold the remainder of his son, but it could only be half the size of his, and that was for obvious reasons. Inside the Synod Hall is the Dublinia exhibition. That is the Viking Museum, a multimedia exhibition telling the medieval life of Dublin up to the present day. Now, for many years, Christchurch Cathedral was surrounded by a maze of laneways and alleyways, and many of these laneways and alleyways have names appropriate to what the purpose of the street was. Underneath the arch, you've got Wine Tavern Street. This is where all the wine taverns were located, and the warehouses.
That's the arch.
On the opposite side, on the other side, the right-hand side of the cathedral, you have Fishamble Street, and in the 9th and 10th centuries is where all the fish markets were located. The street directly in front of us is High Street. This was the main street in the Viking town. It's from that street in front of you that the city of Dublin grew and developed. It was a ridge of high ground, easy for the Vikings to defend and protect, and the land sloping down to the river Liberties gives easy access to the sea. If you go underneath the arch and turn immediately left, you'll be on Cook Street and you'll walk along past the old city wall. Cook Street is where all the bakeries were located, and they were located outside the city for fear that sparks from the bakeries would set the city ablaze. There is one street, however, which is no longer open to the public. Well, it's open, you can go to it, but this street is called Hell. And when it was open to the public as such, there was a carving of the devil on the archway. But the street itself was full of all sorts of dens of iniquity, gambling dens, and drinking dens, and places of disrepute. There was also accommodation available on the street, and an advertisement in the newspaper of today read, "Accommodation available in Hell, suitable for members of the legal profession." Today it lies beneath the belly of Christ Church, and it's where many of the treasures of Christ Church are now housed. In order to get to Hell, you have to go to church first. Christ Church Cathedral now, ladies and gentlemen, stop number 13.
Where are they? And then we're going on to 14.
Your next stop on the tour, stop number 14, and
So
it'll
we're
be for
heading
the second of our cathedrals here in the city, which is for St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Heading for St. Patrick's Cathedral.
After the death of Lawrence O'Toole, the new Archbishop of Dublin, John Cummin, decided that he would build his new cathedral outside the old city wall, meaning he would not come under the jurisdiction of the city council, and was therefore not subject to the taxes and obligations imposed by the councils on those who lived and worked here inside the city wall. So he chose one of the oldest Christian sites that we have in Dublin. In the year 450, St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, is believed to have baptised the heathen Irish into Christianity by dunking their heads into a small well which is located in the park coming up now shortly on your left-hand side. During the development of this area in the middle of the 19th century, the capstone to the well was discovered, and although the well itself had dried out, the stone has St. Patrick's cross and markings on it, and it's now on permanent display here inside the cathedral. A small wooden structure dedicated to St. Patrick existed on this site up until the construction of the main cathedral itself, and it was consecrated on the 17th of March 1191. St. Patrick's is also an Anglican cathedral, having changed hands during the Reformation. Also during the campaigns of Oliver Cromwell here in Ireland, he marched his horses up to the nave of the church and housed them in the church itself. He used it as a stable. So these actions, combined with many other actions, also led St. Patrick's Cathedral falling into recognition as a century rolled on. But thanks to the generosity of the Guinness family, and in particular Sir Benjamin Lee Guinness, the grandson of Arthur, he also donated a considerable sum of money for its restoration.
Wow.
And it's thanks to the Guinness family that St. Patrick's Cathedral is still with us here today. Inside the cathedral you'll find a great many statues and monuments and structures, memorabilia and artefacts pertaining to people who have been associated with the cathedral throughout its long history. Some of these people are quite famous, some of them are not so famous. But you've got the likes of the Lady Chapel. This is actually dedicated to the Guinness family. It's a church but inside of a church. You've got the Door of Reconciliation, where you get the expression from chancing your arm. You've also got the statue of Richard Boyle, the great pharmacist and scientist. You've got Jonathan Swift's pulpit, flags and banners from various military regiments stationed in Ireland over 800 years of occupation. And the list goes on and on and on. Stop number 14 now, ladies and gentlemen. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral. Just a moment. People getting out. Just a moment, just a moment, just a moment, just don't relax yourself there. Okay, dogs, now you come. Come on, now you come. Yeah, no worries. You just hold your phone flat there facing upwards. Flat facing upwards, that's flat facing downwards. There you go. Flat facing upwards.
So we're at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and then we're heading for where?
Thank you.
I think we'll have to double back now, so we're going to, what's that one?
So you're going to be cutting it very, very fine. Very, very fine. We'll see how we get on, but if you're cutting it fine, you're better off getting a taxi from
Newmarket.
the Guinness storehouse. Yeah.
Teeling Whiskey Distillery. Next. And we head back up to where?
Stop 6. No service. Stop 4. 5, 6 and 7 are closed today. No access to that area, okay? Now, just to continue on with some famous people associated with St. Patrick's Cathedral, there's one guy that I always like to mention, because he's not commemorated inside the cathedral or in Marsh's library. His name is Arthur Wynne. Now, Arthur Wynne was born in Liverpool in the United Kingdom in 1871. You may not be familiar with the name, but you will be familiar with his invention. He was the inventor of the modern day crossword puzzle, the black and white squares that you do in your magazines, newspapers and other forms of literature. He had a long association with the cathedral and Marsh's library here on your left. So it's not commemorated inside the meter. He is buried in the graveyard on your left hand side here. We often refer to this graveyard as being the dead centre of Dublin. If you want to know where the inventor of the crossword puzzle is buried, look through the railings there now. He's 3 up and 4 across. It's a slow burner. There it is. Now we're going to turn right onto Kevin Street, named after St. Kevin. His monastic ruins are located in Glendalough, up in the Garden of Ireland of County Wicklow. Anyone familiar with the series The Vikings or Vikings Valhalla? This is where it is filmed. Don't live all that far away, don't you? Right? Take spins up there winter, summer, autumn, spring, at different times of the year. Well, at different, same time every day, but different times of the year. You should be up there for 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the sun rising over the lower lakes. So the monks certainly do have choose these picture postcard places to go and set up their monasteries. But as we turn right on to Kevin Street, here on the right hand side we have the deanery of St. Patrick's Cathedral. It is the residence for the head of the cathedral. It was in this house that Jonathan Swift lived, was he was the dean between 1713 and 1745, considered to be the most famous dean of all. Whilst he lived in the house, all of his major works were completed. So his most famous work, most people will be familiar with, is the Gulliver's Travels. It's been adapted for the stage and the screen maybe over 56 times, I think it is. We also have 62 different publications of it in 120 different languages. But there is another little work that's not so well known outside of Ireland that Swift wrote back in the year 1727, and this is called A Modest Proposal. Now, a number of years ago, the Keyboard Warriors, the Cancel Culture Brigade, or the I'm So Easily Offended by Everything Brigade, whatever you want to call them, there's lots of names for them. Not allowed to use most of them over the airwaves. They tried to get this essay banned, but Common Sense took over and they were sent packing, so you can still download the essay for free if you wish to do so, written nearly 300 years ago. To give it some background, Jonathan Swift was born in this area of the city in 1667. He was born into poverty, but he rose through the ranks of society to become the Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral. In the essay, Swift writes that the rich and the wealthy people here in the city of Dublin in the middle of the 17th century should leave their townhouses, should leave their mansions and their dwellings, and they should take saunters across the impoverished streets of Dublin. Along these saunters, they should gather up many of the poor people's children, and they should take the poorest of these children home with them, where they should nurture the children and care for them. They should cleanse them. They should dress them in fine clothes, treat them as their own, and show them off to all their friends and family. They should also feed these children fine food available to fatten them up and make them nice and plump. And when the children are sufficiently fat and plump, you should eat them.
Oh.
Ha, so that got you out. Now, no better man, no better vehicle than Jonathan Swift to write such an essay, because it is a satire on the solution on how the rich people are going to sort out the problem of the poor. Now, if you download it, as I said, 6 pages long. If you're not laughing by page 2, I suggest you go and have another pint of Guinness and start all over again. We're heading up into the business end of the city now. We're heading up towards the distilleries and the breweries. Our next stop is number 15. It's for Teeling's Whiskey Distillery. It's also for the Dublin Liberties Distillery. In fact, we've got 6 whiskey distillery tours on our tour and 1 whiskey museum. And sure, why wouldn't we? Whiskey is an Irish invention. It was invented by the monks in the early Christian times when they were away off visiting the Near East. They discovered that the local people were using processes called distillation to create perfumes. But the monks, having taken the vow of celibacy and smelling just fine the way they were, decided that they had no use for perfume. So they put the distillation process to much better use, and they created this drink and they called it Ishkamaha, the water of life. Invented originally for medicinal purposes, they soon discovered that you could have a lot more fun if you weren't sick and you were drinking it. Now, wilde Teeling was the master distiller back in the early part of the 18th century. However, in 2015, his 2 grandsons, great-grandson, Jack and Stephen Teeling, decided that they would establish their new distillery right here in the heart of South Dublin. It was the first time a new distillery had been opened in Dublin in 125 years. In 2018, they welcomed their first batch of distilled whiskey. It takes 3 years to make an Irish whiskey, and this was done to much fanfare and celebration. Oh my God, did we help them celebrate. Now, the 6 distillery tours that you have, they're all themed differently. Like Teeling's is a working distillery, so while you're in there doing the tour, they're making the whiskey right in front of your very eyes. I can't take any. Just give them a set of headphones they can listen to on the multilingual. I can't take anyone.
I think we're full on our bus. That's what the bus driver's saying. The city.
Now, as I said, Teeling's itself, this is a working distillery. So while you're in there walking around doing your distillery tour, there's people making whiskey right in front of your very eyes. The one thing that all of the distilleries have in common is that at the end of every whiskey distillery tour, you get to taste 3 different types of whiskey. You get to taste Irish whiskey, Scottish whiskey, and American bourbon. So if you were to do all 6 whiskey distillery tours and the museum, that's 21 whiskies in one sitting. That'll have anybody 3 sheets to the wind. Personally, I don't drink an awful lot of whiskey. I just have one the odd night before I go to bed to help me sleep. Went to bed 6 times last night. But this area that we're in, it's a very old area here in the city. There's been settlements in and around this area now for close to 1,200 years, about 1,200 years, about 1,200 years. And as a result of that, there's a great many names being associated with the area. So, first name is the Liberties. So called because, like St. Patrick's Cathedral, it's outside the city wall. So it did not come under the governance of the city councils and the guilds. So they were not subject to the taxes and obligations imposed by these on the people who lived and worked here inside the city. In the 12th century, King Henry II of England established the monastery of St. Thomas the Martyr. Now, he gifted the monks great tracts of lands here in Dublin, across Wicklow and across County Meath, and he allowed them to control the trade and the tariffs that went on in the area. But the monks realised that if you kept the tariffs and the taxes low, more people would trade, and as a result of this, this area became a very wealthy area. Now, the people lived in these small little hamlets, and the hamlets then quickly became known as Liberties, and in fact we have 8 Liberties here in the city centre surrounding the outside of the city. Well, would have surrounded the outside of the wall. The wall is long since gone. There's only various different parts of it left here in the city. But we're going to turn left onto the Coombe. The Coombe is an old Irish word, and it means a shallow place or a valley. And this would have been an ancient passageway into the old town of Dublin, and it dates back to the 13th century. We've just left the Newmarket Square, and as we head up the Coombe on your left-hand side, we'll have the Weavers Square, and further on up we have the Tenters. These 3 names are directly associated with the Huguenots. Huguenots were the Dutch and the French Protestants who came to Ireland to escape religious persecution. Now their weaving, their wool and silk weaving was based in this area here on the left, hence the name the Weavers Square, with around 10,000 people employed in it. When they were finished weaving the wool and the silk, they'd bring it on up the kiln to where they lived, up to the tenters. Now they hung it on lines between the avenue, along the avenues between the alleyways between the houses. The local people, it looked like tents, so they gave it the name tenters. People who wanted to sell any of their products, they'd bring it down to the marketplace, they'd open up a new market, and then at one point or another there was around 50 new markets, so they decided to call it just the New Market Square to make things easier for them. Now there's lots of other names associated, we're not going to be able to go through the whole lot of them, but further on up the kiln we've got Dolphin's Barn to the right, we've got Pimlico, and we've got the Black Pits. You've also got the Gold Triangle. I get the Gold Triangle in this turn. Yeah, we will. So the Gold Triangle, now all these names have association with it, but collectively the whole area would be known as the Gold Triangle. That's directly associated with the whiskey distilling in the area. Back in the 1800s there was around 50 whiskey distilleries, all based in this area. It was the largest concentration of whiskey distilleries anywhere in Europe. The 3 points of the Golden Triangle was the Pearse, the Jamesons and the Henry Rowe whiskey distilleries. And then inside of that triangle you had around 40 plus more distilleries. That all sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Until the 1860s thereabouts, it was a very tragic event in the area where one of these whiskey distilleries had caught fire. The fire quickly spread to many other smaller distilleries, eventually making its way towards one of the large warehouses where over 5,000 barrels of whiskey were being stored. This quickly went up in flames, and as the barrels of whiskey began to explode, the people who lived in the area gathered up what little possessions they had and fled for their lives. That was the Great Whiskey Fire at the Old Coombe. It was the same year, however, that the Dublin Fire Brigade was established, and when they arrived onto the scene, they immediately began to pour water onto the flaming whiskey. Now anyone who drinks whiskey will know that if you add water to whiskey, it just makes even more whiskey. And when the people who had fled for their lives with their little possessions heard that the whiskey was flowing freely through the streets, what did they do? They gathered up what little possessions they had and they made their way back, bringing with them pots and pans and cups and all sorts of utensils to scoop up the whiskey, and they had a right old party for themselves. This party went on through the night with song and dance and merriment until the next morning, when it wasn't so funny. They realised that 19 of their friends and neighbours had died from alcohol poisoning. How they died from the alcohol poisoning? Well, the flames weren't being put out by the water that was being poured by the fire brigade onto the flaming whiskey. But what we had in the city at the time was around 50,000 working horses, so we had mountains and mountains and mountains of manure. So what the fire brigade done was that they stacked the manure up on top of the flames to drown it out and make a dam. And then as the whiskey came through the manure, the people were drinking it, and that's how they all died. So a pretty miserable way to die. Now on a bit more cheerful note, your next stop is for the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory for grown-ups, otherwise known as the Guinness Storehouse. Stop number 16. Arthur Guinness established his first brewery here back in the year 1759, and he had learned his trade from his father. He secured £100 in the will of his godfather, who was the annual Archbishop of Cashel, Arthur Price. With the £100 he negotiated a lease for this used ale brewing site. He negotiated the lease for 9,000 years at a cost of £45 per year. Now he originally started brewing ale, and he competed with about 90 other breweries at the time of business, but around this time a new drink was popular in London. An ale brewer there accidentally burnt the barley and hops used in the making of ale. Rather than throwing the dark coloured liquid away in an attempt to recoup some of his losses, he barrelled up this beer, brought it down to the marketplace of Billingsgate in Covent Garden, and he sold it to the porters for half price. The porters loved the drink so much they kept coming back looking for more, so he brewed it in larger quantities, and then in honour of the men who had saved his business, he called the drink porter. He was a friend of Arthur, so he wrote him to tell him of the new drink, and realised that Arthur was having his own problems to compete with the other 90 breweries. Arthur realised that he was having the problems, jumped into his little boat, he paddled it all the way across the pond, he investigated further, and he devised his own recipe, and he created Irish Stout, known around the world today as Stout called porter. Now, the visit to the storehouse is a self-guided tour that means you're going to have to find your own way around, but it's not really difficult. At the very start of the tour, you will be introduced to the 9,000 year lease, and then you're on your own. Now it just goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up all the way to the floor at number 7 with the gravity bar, and it's in here that you will be presented with the most expensive complimentary pint of Guinness that you've ever been to. Stop number 16, buses every 20 minutes throughout the day. Last service here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, 10 minutes past 8.
This is Guinness factory. Guinness factory. You smell it in the air?
Now just...
There's a distinct smell in the air, even outside the factory. 7 floors.
See you now, take care. Look.
So a 9,000-year lease. Is that actually a thing? And is that the longest lease in living history? I suspect
Yeah.
so. Haven't time to do the Guinness tour today, unfortunately. Have we? What time is it now?
Now just hold that down there, facing upwards. That's it, thank you.
Because once it gets to 2 o'clock-ish, we're going to need to start making plans. It's 11:30 already. My goodness. Once it gets to 2 o'clock, we're going to have to start making plans to head off. Gillian says she's looking forward to 6:36 on Tuesday. Gillian, 6:36 tomorrow. All being
Now
well.
I'll leave the home of the black stuff.
Should be back
This
to
is not
normal.
the home of the black stuff. Guinness is not black. It's the home of the deep ruby red stuff.
Look how busy it is down here.
If you get your free glass of Guinness later on today, if you look at your brochures there, you can see we offer a free glass of Guinness in Lennon's Yard on Dawson Street. Even if you don't like Guinness, you go and get your free glass of Guinness and get yourself an old selfie taken with it. And you can post it on your social media saying you drank Guinness in Dublin. If you hold it up to the light, you'll see the deep ruby red shining through. Now that's not the only tall tale that Guinness will tell you. They'll tell you that it's good for you, that it gives you courage, strength and patience. But what they don't tell you is the adverse effects it can have on your body. So if you're drinking lots of Guinness later on today, do not stand downwind of your loved ones in the morning. But some Guinness was spilled on the barroom floors, the pub it closed down for the night. Then out of a hole popped a little brown mouse and he danced in the pale moonlight. So he lapped up the Guinness, the barroom floor, and then back on his haunches he sat. And all through the night I could hear him roar, bring on the goddamn cat. Now if you have a few too many Guinness on board, you'll be on the rocky road to recovery. The more you've had, the rockier it gets. Feel a bit like this at times. Rather the Guinness perfected his recipe for Irish stout. He said that he drank 2 bottles of Guinness every single day for the remainder of his life, and this was to give him courage, strength and patience. He also encouraged his wife Olivia Whitmore to drink Guinness, believing that she needed a great deal of courage, strength and patience. The reason being is that Olivia Whitmore, Arthur's wife, had 21 children for Arthur.
Wow.
Some people said that there was a baby in every bottle of Guinness that he drank. As we turn left onto James Street, the house with the black door beside the infamous St James's Gate is in fact the family home of Arthur Guinness. It's in here that all the black magic happened. As you can see, right beside the St James's Gate, the keystone to the archway there is the Roman goddess of agriculture. Her name is Ceres. She's a garland of barley around her head and neck. So Arthur didn't have too far to walk in the mornings after his nocturnal activities and his 2 bottles of Guinness, and he certainly didn't have too far to walk back home to continue on what he left off the night before. If you breathe deeply enough through your nose there, you can actually smell the hops and the barley in the air. Stop at number 17 here now, ladies and gentlemen. 17.
Wonder how much barley they go through.
So 2 whiskey
in a
distilleries,
year.
you got Rowan
People
Crow there
liking
on the
this.
right hand side. They're not dropping any hints, but that is my favourite whiskey. And then further on up the street then we have the Pearse Lyons Whiskey Distillery. Pearse Lyons, born in this area of the city, spent a lot of his life living in the United States of America, where he founded the All-Tech Nutrition Company. He married a lady from Texas, her name was Deirdre. In their elder years, she convinced him to return here to Ireland and establish the Pearse Lyons Whiskey Distillery. So they purchased St James's Church, It was on the market at the time for €800,000. It was opened in 1860 as a Presbyterian church, but because of dwindling numbers in the area, it closed in the 1960s. Yeah, 1948, the steeple of the church had to be replaced due to storm, had to be taken down due to storm damage, and was only replaced during the development of the Pearse whiskey distillery. Now, I wouldn't be a big fan of the whiskey, but the tour itself is quite excellent because it'll take you around the church and tell you the history of the church. But it'll also tell you the history of the graveyard as they take you around, and as each guide has his own favourite people to talk about. There's over 250,000 people buried in that little graveyard on your right hand side. The graveyard itself is over 800 years old. You've got 2 holders of the Victoria Cross, 11 members of the Pearse Lyons family. You've got various different soldiers, commanders, brigade leaders. You've also got the likes of the workers from the factories, the distilleries, breweries, all buried in here. In fact, it was such a popular graveyard once upon a time that people were just dying to get into it. We're going to make our way down onto Bow Lane, and coming up on the right hand side was St Patrick's Hospital, founded in 1749 at the bequest of Jonathan Swift, who left £11,000 in his will to the foundation of the hospital, specifically for treatment of people who were going insane or suffering from mental illness, as he himself believed he was going insane in his later years. He suffered temporary blindness, deafness, dizzy spells, headaches, and many of his friends and family believed to be the sign of mental illness. He also left a little note as well as the £11,000 he left what little wealth he had to build a house for the fool of the man, and he showed one very much that no nation needed it so much. This hospital is still in use today. It's used by our health services executive as a rehabilitation centre for people who suffer with the likes of drug addictions, eating disorders, and also alcoholism. The funny thing is, the alcoholics wake up in the morning, so the first thing they smell is the Guinness brewery. Next up, number 18 for the Royal Hospital, Kilmainham, and the Irish Museum of Modern Art and Kilmainham Jail. Now, the Royal Hospital was established in the year 1680 by James Butler. He was the Duke of Ormond. He'd been in exile with Charles II in Paris and France, but after the restoration of the monarchy in England, he was appointed the Viceroy of Ireland for his loyalty to the Crown. Whilst he was in Paris, he was inspired by a hospital called the Wilde. So on his return here to Dublin, he established the Royal Hospital specifically for the treatment of retired British soldiers, those who had been injured or invalid in the many campaigns that Great Britain was involved in around the world at the time. Remaining in military use up until 1928, then closed as a hospital. And the patients were taken from here to Chelsea in London. This is where you get your Chelsea pensioners from these days. After restoration order, it was then handed over to the National Network, and today housing the Irish Museum of Modern Art. Stop number 18. Okay.
Wave everybody. Right, so where are we now? The place is immaculately clean, all in the city. The whole time we've been here, in fact, the whole journey yesterday to the ploughing and back, the infrastructure right here is second to none. The place is spotless. Right. Oh no, what stop are we at? 19? Which is the, what does that say? Houston Station, is that right? Oh no, we're here at the Irish Museum, 18. Heading back up here, and then
now this area is called Kilmainham, and in the English language it means the Church of Mineham. A monastery would have existed here from the 7th century until the 9th century with the arrival of the Vikings. The Vikings sailed up the River Liffey in the year 841, decided to establish their first settlements in the Wood Quay area of the city, just beneath where Christ Church stands today. The Vikings were the first to bring towns and villages to Ireland, and the name that they gave to this town was Dublin, a corruption of the name Dublin, meaning the Black Pool.
Gia?
Yeah, next stop will be stop number 19. This will be for Houston Station. Houston Station was developed in the 1840s as the King's Bridge Station. It was said to be the golden age of Irish railway development. Built to celebrate the amalgamation of the Great Southern and Great Western Railways, supply of an empire where the sun never sets. Now the darkness of the railway there again. It was renamed Houston Station in 1966 to commemorate Sean Houston, another leader from the 1916 uprising. So this is stop number 19 now for Houston Station. Trains departing from here will take you down to the south and the west of the country.
Oh, look at that. So what have we got here? Let's have a look at the map. What's that building over there? So we've got Houston Station here. We've stopped. But this, no, that's this building here on the right. You didn't say what it was. This one here, rather grand. Kind of resplendent in the sunshine, isn't it?
Now the French two-story building here to the right hand side was laid down. This is Dr. Stephen's Hospital. Now Dr. Stephen's Hospital was the very first public hospital to be opened in Ireland. It was opened in the year 1733 by Dr. Brazil Stevens. His brother, Dr. Richard Stevens, had left considerable sum of money in his will for the foundation of the hospital. It remained for public use until 1982. As we cross over the River Liffey here now, at Blackshire Bridge. To the left you can see a bridge with 1821 inscribed on it. This is called the Houston Bridge. When it was built in 1828, it was built as the King's Bridge and commemorates the visit to Dublin of King George IV in 1821. George was a very reluctant visitor here to Dublin. He didn't want to come at all because the place was too packed, too stuffy, overcrowded. He wanted to be in Slane Castle in County Meath to visit his mistress, Lady Cunningham of Slane Castle. Because of the constitutional monarchy in England and because Ireland, Dublin was the second city in the British Empire and the largest on this island, he was required by law to come and visit us. But the trip itself was a disaster from the get-go. Mainly because of the size of the man. He was 6'4" and he was about 25 stone, and as he sailed into the port of Hope because of a storm, we were meant to sail to Leary, but because of a storm, to go to Hope. And as he jumped off the boat, he was very sick, seasick, so the group of fishermen there set sail because of the storm. So we offered him a chair to sit on and wait on his feet. But the chair collapsed underneath his weight, as did the next one. So they have commissioned the construction of a special chair for him. That is now on display in the throne room of Dublin Castle. He hosted a banquet here in Dublin. He was so eager to get down and visit Lady Cunningham that he ordered the road to Slane straight all the way down. If you stay on this road now for 50 kilometres, Slane Castle is exactly where you arrive. But when he eventually got down there, Lady Cunningham had had a change of heart. She had eyes for a new man. She broke off the relationship with poor old George. So he jumped back into his carriage, made his way here to Dublin. Set sail from Port to Liverpool, set sail from Leary for Liverpool, never to return to Ireland again. This is the Phoenix Park, 1,752 acres of parkland. This is surrounded by a wall over 10 kilometres long, or roughly 7 miles long. Originally opened in 1662 as a royal hunting ground, the building of the time of the Phoenix Park followed here as the partridge, which was especially important for the likes of Wales and Scotland. At night time, poachers came into the park to have their fair share of deer. The wall was built around the park to deer in poachers out. The park was then opened to the public in 1747 by Lord Chesterfield.
It's amazing, doesn't it?
Standing at 62 metres high, it's the second tallest obelisk in the world, second only to the Washington Testimonial. Dedicated to Arthur Wellesley, the first Duke of Wellington, and his victory over Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The defence above the monument commemorates some of the events that took place in Arthur Wellesley's life, the likes of the Peninsular Campaign and Napoleonic Wars. Now Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, or the Iron Duke, born here in Dublin. Born in house number 24, Merrion Square, now part of the hotel today. Educated in Trim, County Meath, his ancestral home. He was the very first Irish-born Prime Minister of England. He was never very proud of his Irish ancestry, and he was once questioned in Westminster about his Dublin origins, and his response was, just because a man is born in a stable, it does not mean that he is a horse. With that then, Daniel O'Connell, the great liberator and emancipator, stood up and retorted, "Dear sir, statements like that make you sound like an ass." This stop at number 20, Old Phoenix Park. It's for the People's Gardens, Dublin Zoo, the Wellington Testimonial. There's a bike hire company up at the front of the park here. And you can get the bus service number 99 up to the visitor centre, family house, and also the Papal Cross. Stop number 20, Phoenix Park.
Wow, stunning. Isn't it? Didn't know the likes of this was here. So what do you call that, needle? Where are we? There, at Wellington Monument. Something else. Now we're heading back. We'll go right along the river Liffey. In the National Museum. And Collins Barracks will be on our left. As will Four Courts, St Michael's Church.
The name Phoenix, it's derived from the words Fionna Ishka. It means the clear water or the holy well. The lands of the Phoenix Park once belonged to the Abbey of Kilmainham, under the jurisdiction of the Knights of Jerusalem, also known as the Knights of King John or the Knights of Jesus Christ, known as Militaries and the Knights of Malta. Still in existence, they're known today here in Ireland as the Order of Malta. They were founded in the 12th century to protect the pilgrims on the roads to the Holy Lands. But after the fall of the last crusade, the return to the monastic holdings here in Ireland and across Europe to continue with their religious teachings and their farming practices. Now this clear water or holy well is located in the garden on your left hand side here. This is called the People's Garden. 22-acre enclosed garden here inside the park. It's a formal Victorian garden laid out specifically for Queen Victoria, which came to visit us in the 1840s. Known as the Famine Queen, she stayed here at the Phoenix Park in a house called the Farm Lee House. This is the main entrance to the Phoenix Park. It's called the Parkgate Street entrance, and you don't have to be that observant to notice that we don't have any gates at the Parkgate Street entrance. The park is open 365 days of the year, 24 hours of the day, 7 days of the week. But that's not always been the case. That's only been the case since 1932, when we had the very first Eucharistic Congress here in Dublin. Held in the very same Phoenix Park, the Farm Lee House. Facilitate the easy access to carriages of the coaches, bringing the priests, cardinals and archbishops to Farm Lee. Gates of the park were removed. For safekeeping, obviously. Now these gates were priceless, beautifully ornate, a much treasured item for both the park authorities and the citizens here in the city. So to keep them safe and out of harm's way, one man, and one man alone, was commissioned with the responsibility of taking the gates down and keeping them safe until the end of the 3-week Congress. And he was sworn to secrecy, but also under the threat of excommunication from the Catholic faith if he revealed to any living soul the location of the gates. The Eucharistic Congress lasted for 3 weeks. And no sooner had it started, didn't he go and die of a heart attack? And he never told anyone where to get the bloody gates. So for the last 90 years we've been looking for them, and we still cannot find them. Next up from Parkgate Street, two very fine pubs located here on Parkgate Street. You've got Nancy Hams and William Bryan. William Bryan is one of the 7 Victorian pubs we have here in the city, and it's also part of the ex-Buckley Steakhouse. Nancy Hams, well, Nancy was one of the very first female publicans in Ireland, not to be outdone by her rivals in business. We have peculiar licensing laws here in Ireland for many, many years, particularly on a Sunday when the pubs all closed, what's called the Holy Hour. The Holy Hour, sadly, however, lasted 3 hours, and it quickly became known as the Happy Hour, because people would get lock-ins and go home cold. But anyway, Nancy, not to be outdone by the Happy Hour, she put a post box on the wall there, and people would walk by the post box and they'd knock on it and order their pints, and Nancy would hand the pints out, and all anyone ever saw of her were her hands. That's the name of Nancy Hands. number 21.
Trams
The
head
next stop
through the
would be
city
stop
as well.
number 22. It would be for the Collins Barracks Museum, the National Museum for Decadent Barracks and Military History. If you've got any military history in your life, be it yourselves, your wives, your husbands, your sons, daughters, uncles, aunts, no matter what it may be, it'll be of interest to you. With 800 years of Irish military history here in the National Museum for Decadent Barracks and History. But on your left hand side is one of my favourite little gardens here in Dublin. This is called the Croppy Acre Garden. Beautiful little garden. Always nice to know for some reflection on reading perhaps. The reason it's one of my favourite gardens is that it's got one of my favourite monuments in the city. Her name is Diana Livia. She's the female representation of the beating heart of the city. She's perhaps one of Dublin's most famous millennium monuments. Built to the people of Dublin in 1988, she sat on O'Connell Street in a very large fountain quite close to where the Spire of Dublin stands today. Over the years, however, many a man with a broken heart, a few too many pints of Guinness on board, has been down and tried to have a big day again. As a result of that, became a big lane. Here to your right, the latest addition to the complex, Brewing House number 4, live and rising, is in here to build the likes of Hop House 13, the Rock Shower Collection. And on behalf of the Irish nation, I'll take the opportunity to apologise because it's in Brewing House number 4 that the finishing touches are put to one of Ireland's crimes against humanity, that is, alcohol-free Guinness. It's about as useful now as a waterproof tea bag. But I don't know what it tastes like, so don't ask. I'll never know what it tastes like because I'll never ever drink it. This is stop number 22. This is for the Collins Barracks Museum. And your brochure's just here.
The Guinness lorries waiting to head back into the factory to get loaded up, often their deliveries around the city.
Next up on the tour, stop number 23. Stop number 23 is for the Jameson distillery, the Church, Smithfield Square, Smithfield Tower, and the Cobblestone Pub. John Jameson was a Scottish man. God has since forgiven him for that little misdemeanor. Because in the year 1780, John Jameson established the Jameson's Whisky Distillery here on Bow Street in Smithfield, and it's from here that Irish whisky then became known across the world. Now, Jameson's whisky is no longer distilled in Dublin, it's distilled in Middleton, County Cork, but the distillery today is used as a museum. A very fine tour indeed, and at the end of this tour you will also get to taste three whisky. After that then, you will 137 steps to the top of the Smithfield Tower. So two-tier viewing platform, and on a day like today, views of the city will be absolutely incredible. The only problem is, when you get to the top of the Smithfield Tower, there's no man, no lift. 137 steps all the way back down. That's where you're going to walk first up. Take your way towards the Cobblestone Pub. It's the Cobblestone Pub. You'll have a bit of an experience. There's no Wi-Fi, internet, television, radio. Cobblestone Pub. You wouldn't even get toast and sandwich in the place. But what you will get is a piece of Irish music. Many of the musicians from across the city here gather here on a daily basis, and they have impromptu sessions. They play the music that they want to play. So it's not the kind of music that you'll hear in the bars. It's the real hardcore traditional Irish music. They might even throw a ballad or two. So this stop here, number 23 for Smithfield Square.
The River Liffey. This is the river that runs right the way through Dublin. Rather majestic it is, isn't it? Everything all right?
See you now, we're going. See you now, bye-bye. See ya.
So we're just stopped 19, I think. There's a few folk getting off, get back on again.
Thank you.
It's just busy everywhere you look. we'll have to be careful with our time heading back to the airport. Shona says our host seems to be he's perfectly Irish, isn't he? Perfectly Irish.
St Paul's Church was the second Roman Catholic church to be built on a public highway after the Emancipation Act of Daniel O'Connell in 1829. Sadly, the church is no longer in use, and that's because of the dwindling numbers in the area, but they do open it up every once in a while for people to go and have a look around. This is a beautiful church on the inside. It was in that church that Eamon de Valera married his wife Sinead in 1912. Now, for many years, from 1918 until 1935, the parish priest here at St Paul's Church, his name was Father William Bourne. Every night, Father Bourne lived on the opposite side of the river here. He would cross over the bridge, walk along the wall up to the church, and at exactly midnight he would lock the doors of the church. He refused point blankly to walk on this side of the street, the same side of the street, because of this Dublin Clock Company. Now, when this was a residence, every night between 1918 and 1935, these strange noises would be coming from the house, very loud and very bright. People even thought they were sounding satanic. So for the fear of God in him, he refused to pass by it. But one night, shortly before he was due to retire, a group of parishioners had gathered outside the church, and they begged him to once and for all knock on the door and find out what the noises were. So he knocked on the door. The noises were so loud this night that the owner of the house stood out onto the curb and closed the door behind them. He said to him, "Father Bourne, what can I do for you this evening?" Father Bourne said, "Please, for the love of God, tell me what these noises are so I can tell the parishioners and put them at ease." And the owner of the house said, "Father," he says, "I'll tell you what the noises are." He said, "But firstly, you must make me a promise never to tell anybody." That's what he done. On the right hand side of you there now we have the Brazen Head Tavern. It's the oldest pub in the city, founded in the year 1181. It's an old Viking pub. Probably have one of the finest menus in Irish cuisine here in the city. So if you're looking for that Dublin coddle or the Irish stew, corned beef, cabbage and potatoes, if you're looking for the shepherd's pie or even the fish pie, get yourself to the Brazen Head. But we do have 2-for-1 ill deal offers in the Lots pub, which can be accessed at stop number 5, or at stop number 1 you've got the Murray's Public House. So Murray's is a traditional Irish pub, 2-for-1 meal deal, and then in Lots 2-for-1 meal deals. Just show your tickets to the matron D's for ordering the sale of offers. This is stop number 24. Now on the right hand side of us here we have what is considered to be one of the most controversial office blocks here in the city of Dublin today. These are civic offices and they belong to the Dublin City Council. Standing on the site called Wood Quay. When the Viking sailed up the River Liffey in the year 841, it was at this very spot that they jumped out of the boats for the first time and established their first town, the town of Dublin. When they were digging the foundations for these buildings back in the 1970s, what they discovered here was the largest Viking find outside of Scandinavia. Over 1 million artefacts in 33,000 different categories pertaining to the Viking way of life. Now, despite objections from bodies across the world, from as far away as the Middle East, all across North America, across Scandinavia, Europe, across mainland Europe, permission was granted for them to go ahead and build on the site. In 1977, the Queen of Denmark came here to Dublin to lend a hand to the protests which were taking place at the time, Queen Marguerite. She was refused access to the site. She was even ignored by the authorities, but not to be deterred, she walked freely amongst the protesting crowd, meeting and greeting as she went along. Now, when I say it was a protest, it was more carnival-like with music and dance and face painting, food, and all sorts of festivities here on the site itself. And how do I know? Because I was there at the age of 5. My own father brought me into town to the protest and got a chance to shake the hand of Queen Marguerite. Now, I was only 5 at the time. Since then, I doubt that she remember me. Now, Temple Bar is our next stop, number 25. The best way to get to Temple Bar is over one of Dublin's most iconic landmarks, and that is the beautiful Halfpenny Bridge, the oldest iron bridge in the world. Opened in 1816 as the Wellington Bridge, it's never been officially named as the Halfpenny Bridge. The residents of the city would have had to take 1.5 weeks across this bridge until around 1913. It replaced the ferry which existed on the river at the time. Mr. Willie Welch owned the ferry service. He was a little bit too fond of the old Guinness. He was fond of the Ishkabaha, and his boats had fallen into disrepair, would often sink before getting to their destinations on the river. So the council ordered them to either build a bridge
need to
or
get
repair
off
the
here.
boats, and the cheaper of the two options was to build this iron bridge, and he was allowed to charge that 1/2 penny to compensate for his loss of business. However, in 1912 people stopped using the halfpenny bridge for fear that it was going to collapse and that they would all fall into the river and they would all drown. And the reason that the rumour had started that the halfpenny bridge was built in Belfast, in the north of Ireland, in the Harland and Wolff shipyards, by the same people who built the Titanic. So people were getting a sinking feeling here in Dublin. We like to say here in Ireland is there was nothing wrong with the Titanic when it left our shores.
Right.
This is stop number 25 now, folks.
We
Just
will need to
turn
get
right
off
beyond
here
the lower Lippy Street. You can find lots of pubs
and head
different
down
meal deals.
back
Or
to the
across the bridge through the
Temple
Merchants
Bar
Arch and
area.
into Temple Bar. Thank you. See you now.
Thank you. Thank you.
See ya.
Right. That concludes our city tour of Dublin. We're off to get something for lunch, maybe some coffee, and then we'll need to make our way heading for the airport this afternoon. So off to explore the city. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the tour from Farmer Pete, Tricia's Toys, and Farmer Alice. Welcome to Dublin, and enjoy this beautiful day wherever you are. See you tomorrow morning, 6:36. Don't be late. Ta-da!